Wow. I'm actually really excited to be sitting on this couch specifically for this podcast. Hey guys, welcome to season 2 of Demon Slayers Club. My name is Ryah, your host, and honestly, hold on, let me fix this light. Ugh. Honestly, I didn't know when or if I was gonna come back. Not even I don't know if it's for me, it was that I loved it, but I went through a really long season of questioning my own discernment, which will probably be a topic on itself. But today I have no agenda, no list of things I want to talk about. I have my Bible here and then a book I've been reading just to kind of welcome us all back to season 2 and just talk about why I've been gone for so long and stuff like that. But first and foremost, Lord, I just welcome you into this conversation and I thank you for the ability to just talk. I thank you for the ability to speak. I thank you for the ability to use my voice for you. And I trust that no matter what is said up here, that it'll be used to glorify and honor you. Lord, I ask you to speak to me, through me, and for me. And I trust that even if the word feels so silly today, I know that it'll bless someone as it has blessed me. Amen. Okay, where have I been? Same place. I just haven't been recording. The main reason I have been recording, one, was because in my own head, I was like, I don't really want to take a break, but I also can't pay for the editing program I was using. It's $200 and I got a free trial for I think a month or two. And then when it ended, I was like, okay, let's just take a break. And then that break ended up being much needed because I had some personal stuff going on that was just blowing my mind. And did God get me through it all? Yes. But it was hard and it was rough. And I definitely was not perfect through it all, which is great because His grace is sufficient. But I'm actually really excited to talk with you guys over these next couple weeks of just what I've learned in the season of being off not social media, but not really vlogging or doing my podcast. I also vlog too on this same channel if you guys are interested in that. Yeah, so posting schedule wise, I want to post every week, but I don't think that'll happen. I'm going to be more I want to be less structured with this season. I feel like last season I was really I need an episode every week. I was really hyper fixated on being disciplined in a way that wasn't natural for me. And I'm not saying everything God tells us to do is going to feel natural, but it felt uncomfortable and not in a stretching way. It just felt like I was forcing content and rushing it and not fully taking my time to take what God has given me and share it in a way that it was meaningful, but I don't feel like it was as articulated as it could have been if I just took my time with it. And so I want to focus more this season on taking my time. So episodes may be every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks. I don't know, but there's going to be episodes and I'm excited. I do want to be same kind of vibe as last season of just being honest, confession, speaking the word, reading the word together, but also more stories. I love telling where I've been, what I've been through, not because it's about me, but because I know that it's going to help someone. But also when you shine a light on something, when you shine a light on your quote unquote darkness, it keeps the enemy from using it against you. He can't make you feel ashamed about something that's already out, that people already know about. And so the more I tell my story, the less power I allow the enemy to have to try to use it as a weapon against me. And that's my perspective of that. And I feel just where I've been, going back to that, it's been a real testing of my hope and my ability to maintain hope in the waiting season. Because I've been in a waiting season for a while for all different kinds of things. And God is good through all of it. But I've definitely just questioned my ability to hear God's voice, my own discernment. I've really been struggling with, is it a trigger or is it conviction? Is it a trigger or is it a red flag? Those kind of things. And that's something I really want to share openly about this season on the podcast. And I'm not by any means trying to trauma dump, but just to we all experience trauma. We have all been hurt and bruised. We are all imperfect people and we know imperfect people. So it's natural that we rub against each other. And I want to talk more about that rubbing because I feel when I was going through my season, nobody could help me get through the rubbing. Like, they didn't want to talk. I felt like people didn't want to talk about it, or I didn't know how to talk about it, or I didn't have a space that felt safe enough. Like, I wanted to use wise counsel and safe counsel, but I didn't feel like I had that. And I do also want to articulate the difference between feeling like I had that kind of counsel and actually having it, because sometimes we can have that counsel but not feel like they're safe. Or sometimes we can have unwise counsel but feel like they are safe. Like, there's a difference. And so I definitely know I had people in my corner. I just wasn't at a place yet where I felt safe and comfortable to communicate. But there was nothing that they had done to make me feel unsafe necessarily, for the most part. Because there's also just a pruning of my counsel, of like who I go to and with what. You know, like, some counsel may be great for one area of your life, but you might need another counsel for another area. So just finding out like who my people are, like people of all different kinds of backgrounds and ages, and just people that I know and love and trust. Not just to guide me, but to keep what I say between us, you know, to have that security and privacy. And then I feel like also this season I want to talk about what it looks like to just be a Christian. You know, like, I feel like I went through a phase where I just consumed a lot of Christian content all the time. Like, every movie, TV show, like everything I did almost had some emphasis on God, which was great. But I feel like it really, I want to say overemphasized, for lack of a better word, like religious OCD. And we're going to talk about that on an episode too, where like everything I did, I was wondering if, like, it's almost like religion, going into the Pharisees and the Sadducees, like, is it holy enough? Is it perfect enough? Is it unclean? Like, really just trying to hyper fixate on the perfect way to do something. And I say perfect in quotes because there is no perfect way. And just kind of that whole concept of dealing with those thoughts that were very intrusive and very compulsive, and the behaviors that came with that, and the situations it got me in and out of. It's a whole thing. So that'll probably be an episode this season. But yeah, I'm so excited to be back, and just to feel more comfortable being open and free without worrying about what will this person say, or like, did I study enough? Like, I just want to trust that God's given me the word, and I want to sit down with it and speak about it and meditate on it. Because there were, like, once again, season 1 was great, and I did meditate for hours on the word before I ever brought it to camera. And there were some episodes where I just felt a burden to sit down and just be raw with you guys. And I did that too, but I want to make sure that, and might still be some of the trickling effects of dealing with religious OCD, of like, I want to make sure that I'm being patient with God, and while also still trusting that when he tells me to go, that I can go. Like, making sure that I go when he says go, and not being like, well, you told me to wait yesterday, so why is today the day? You know what I mean? And I'm sorry if this is confusing. I'm just processing and thinking as it's on my heart. And also, the lighting will get better. I guess I completely forgot how I used to set up my lights. Like, I have 2 studio lights that I need to reposition, so forgive the shadows and the darkness and all that. But yeah, thanks for still being here. You know, I don't really check the podcast stats like I used to. I'm also trying to just let go of checking my stats and stuff like that. And that's been very helpful. But I have noticed that in my time away, the podcast and my YouTube channel, just in general, have grown in subscribers and viewers. So if you're new here, hey, welcome. And it's just, I thought it was so funny that when I was constantly making content, like, a new follower would trickle in every now and then. But when I go on like, just fall off the map, like, no warning, my subscriber count goes up more than I thought it would, which is so funny. It seems very countercultural. Like, if you take a break, it seems like all your followers are going to leave, but I ended up gaining followers, and that's, you know, glory to God, but still, it just cracked me up. Also, I've been reading this book. It's by Liza Turkhurst. She was on Sadie Robertson's podcast, Whoa, That's Good. And I listen to Sadie all the time, normally when I'm like at the gym or something, because her podcasts are great for just nuggets of wisdom, like just conversations with people that I can put on while I'm driving or just doing something. Like, it's I don't want to say it's a mindless podcast, but it's something I can listen to while I do something that is mindless, like going to the gym. It's very rhythmic. And so I can focus enough on the gym, but also focus a lot on the word without being too distracted by either. So I love to listen to that. But she had Liza Turkhurst on, and Liza wrote a book called, maybe it's Lisa, I'm sorry if I'm butchering the name, but it's called I Want to Trust You, But I Don't. And this book like just came out. And the subtitle is Moving Forward When You're Skeptical of Others, Afraid of What God Will Allow, and Doubtful of Your Own Discernment. And just that subtitle, listening to that episode on the podcast, I was just like, this is the season I just walked through and still feel like I'm like weaning from, of just skeptical of the people in my life. Nervous of what God will allow to happen and won't allow to happen. You know, things like that, just some anxiety, some fear. And not in ways of like, but just like life, you know, wondering what if or when or how, like just having these like thoughts of like, I wonder if God's going to do it, how he's going to do it. Is he going to heal me from my traumatic brain injury? Is he not? Like all those kind of things. But then also being doubtful of my own discernment. Like I went through a lot of really tough and hurtful conversations over the past couple months that kind of challenged me in my discernment. And it didn't expose anything that wasn't already there, but it just showed me that, okay, maybe I'm not as confident in hearing God as I thought I was, or maybe and it showed me that like I'm more influenced by the counsel in my life than I'd care to admit. And so it just helped me like in that shaking, in that season that I just went through and still am in, the shaking helped me to see where I still am building a firm foundation, but also it showed me how far I had come from who I used to be. And so I'm reading this book with one of my friends. We decided to do a little book club, and we're reading like 50 pages a week. But I just read the foreword in chapter 1. And I'm not going to spoil it or anything I've already read, but it is so good and it's so simple in a way it's easy to understand, easy to compare. And the author really, she walked through this season herself. So she's not writing this from a high and mighty place. She's like, this is where I've been through. This is what I've experienced. Like, this is my story. This is what I've learned. And I know it's hard. Like, there's so many times in the book already where she's like, I know this is hard because I walked through it. It's still hard for me. But I want to help you get to where I am so we can, and I also want to help both of us get further. And so it's relatable in a way that I didn't think it would be. And it addresses trauma, not like specific traumas, but just generally like traumas of being betrayed by a friend, but also like traumas on like losing someone you never thought you'd lose so soon, like a child. Like we go through so much, and I feel like a lot of us are scared to say that we have experienced trauma, or that we feel traumatized, or that we've experienced emotional, physical, psychological, mental abuse. And we don't have the words to articulate how to process it. And also, like, at least in my story, and it seems like in Lisa's as well, it's that it's hard to want to put those words on what we went through because it almost feels too harsh. It almost feels too, like, that can't possibly be me. Like, they would never do that to me. And so it's so hard to articulate the things that you've experienced because it feels unfair compared to other people's stories, or it just doesn't seem like that word is good enough. And I've even been told that, like, I've told people, like, I feel like you neglected me. I feel like you abandoned me. Like, I feel like it felt all these kind of things. And they're like, those words are too harsh. Like, how could you ever feel that way about me? Like, I didn't do that to you. And I'm like, but you did. Like, you may not have intended to, but that's what happened. And I feel like as a society, we are sometimes, let me talk about me. I feel like as myself, I'm slow to label something as bad because I don't want to be put in that box. But also when I articulate the word that I've meditated on, that I've made sure is like accurate, that I'm just articulating those feelings, I get a lot of pushback. My community, a lot of my community yet, I feel, is not at a place to be emotionally vulnerable and to have emotional intimacy where I can have those conversations of you hurt my feelings, or where they can come to me and tell me they don't have, I guess, the drive like I do to tell me when I hurt their feelings, or maybe they're not as sensitive as I am. Maybe I'm very sensitive. I wouldn't say I'm sensitive, but I will say that I do feel things deeply. And that is part of experiencing so much trauma in my life, is that I have a lot of bruises that aren't necessarily easy to push, but when they are pushed, it really hurts. And so going through that healing process and articulating how I've been feeling, what I've been through. I was talking to someone about something that they had said to me, and just a conglomerate of experiences I've had with them that have been hurtful. And it was like an hour-long conversation on the phone. And they were like, sometimes when you communicate, it feels like a gauntlet, because I'm the kind of person where sometimes before I go to you, I want to make sure that I'm not like speaking from my trauma, that I'm actually like, okay, yes, while this might be a bruise, it still does hurt. And I want to communicate this boundary. I want to communicate what happened and why it hurt me and how it hurt me. And for people who aren't I've been to therapy. So if you've been to therapy, you know that your communication just shifts. Like the way you articulate, the way that you feel, and how you are affected by actions changes tremendously. And I talk to people who haven't been to therapy, or who haven't been through a lot of trauma, or who just haven't articulated their trauma or their experiences in life, or the things that have happened to them, or who just don't have a high, it seems like they don't have a lot of empathy. And I say seems like because, once again, I don't know. And so I'll say things like, I felt abandoned when this happened. And while I know you did not abandon me, I do have experiences in my past that emphasize this feeling of abandonment. And I want to walk through this with you. And instead of walking through it with me, it felt like the gauntlet of what I had just said had almost overtaken the conversation. And so that was hard too, of just communicating those feelings, but also the rejection of them not being received in a way that felt constructive. And that'll be a whole nother episode, but this book specifically talks about those kinds of things, of like how to communicate these things, like the kinds of things we experience, how they can make things hard in the future, how they can affect our relationship with God and other people. And it's just, it feels so nice to talk to people who have experienced trauma, who have been through trauma, who have healed from trauma, or who listen, because it feels like acceptance in a way. Not that they're accepting my trauma or that I'm hurt or things like that, but they're just accepting that these are my feelings, and accepting that we can change them together, and accepting that we can move forward without being stuck in that. And they're accepting also, without them having to, they're accepting the role of a volunteer in helping me get through this in our relationship. You know, because there's also some people who accept that you're feeling that way, but then they don't want to help you move forward in their relationship. They just kind of retreat from you, or they run. And so to have people in my life right now who I can say, hey, I need to talk to you about this trigger that I have and that I'm experiencing in our relationship right now, why I'm experiencing it, and what we can both do to move forward. So one, I can reduce that flag, but also that we can keep it from coming up if possible. You know, some things are unavoidable. You know, like if we have trust issues, I'm going to have to be aware of that and communicate when I'm experiencing them. And then I'm also going to need you to bring some reassurance to the table, and vice versa. Even if you're not doing anything, sometimes it's just behaviors are triggering without you meaning for them to be. I hope that made sense. Like, for example, Sadie was talking about this on her podcast, where she was like, she used to be in relationships where like there wasn't a lot of trust. Like they would say they were one place, but the guy would be at another, and it opened up a door for trust issues. And so with her boyfriend or her husband, Christian, there would be times where like in their relationship where he said he was going one place, but then his family decided to change plans, and it just triggered something in her. Or like with me, like I have family members where I tell them something is heavy, like I communicate a heavy feeling with them, and they just kind of shut down and shut me out. And so when I'm communicating my feelings to other people and they shut down and shut me out, it's like my mind, my like unconscious reaction is to tense up and to try to pull them back, like to provide assurance and validation of like who they are and the kind of relationship we have. And then which that is very healthy, but while also doing that, I'll completely disregard how I felt. And then I just won't continue the conversation. And like, it's little things like that of just, I didn't even realize I had those behaviors, or I don't always know how to communicate them well, that are triggers. Like, if I feel like you're pulling away, I'll stop talking about my feelings so you don't run, you know, so because I know my feelings, quote unquote, can be hard, or that I'm being too sensitive. Like those are things that I got told growing up, things like that. And so just navigating how to communicate what I've been through, how to, with God and with people, how to have hope in God and that God can work through people, and just all these different things. I've just, Lisa's book articulates it so well. I really hope all that made sense. I'm going to trust that it did. But yeah, overall, I think I want the theme of season 2 to just be hope. Like trust and hope. And I feel like those things go hand in hand. Because if you trust someone, you have a really strong hope, a really strong faith that they won't let you down. But also, like, you understand that trust can be broken and sometimes easily broken, but that doesn't mean it's like demolished forever. It just has to be fixed and repaired and rebuilt, but it takes two. And so in this season, I really want to focus on, in this season of my life and this season of the podcast, focusing on building my trust with God in terms of like trusting that even when things look bad, He's still a good God, but also trusting that the people that are in my life, even when things look bad, they are still good people. Instead of trying to focus on all the negative and run to protect myself, also a trigger response or a trauma response. So I didn't expect this to be so psychological and therapeutic, but it is. So yeah, that's where we're going season 2. We're going to focus a lot on honesty. Religious OCD I know is going to be a topic. Hope and trust is going to be a topic. Broken trust in relationships may be a topic. Like things that we all experience that I wish someone would have talked to me about, or even just I wish I would have found a resource on before I had walked through that season. So yeah, I love you guys. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so blessed to be here for season 2, and whether one person watches or 1,000 or 1 million, I'm just excited to speak again with you guys on this platform. If you guys want to donate to the show, I know I have like PayPal and stuff listed in the description. I may try to see if there's a more simple way to do all this. I don't know yet. And then if you guys need prayer, my email, I believe, is in the description as well. Yeah, I'm just excited to be here again and to walk with the Lord openly in a new way. What else? I think that is honestly it. Lord, what is there? I feel like I'm forgetting something, but I don't know what it is. Lord, what is it? Oh, I remember. I did go through some of my episodes from season 1. I took 2 down, I believe. I took down the modesty episode, and I took down the final episode of season 1, which was like tired of waiting. And it's not that the content needed to be taken down specifically. In the modesty episode, I was telling a story and I found out that like 2 parts of the story that I had mentioned were incorrect. Or that the other people in the story said that something else happened. Then I remember, and I wanted to make sure that I honored them by reviewing the episode, which I haven't done yet. So maybe by now it'll be back up and maybe I'll cut out those parts. I don't know. But I think the reels are still up. If you have any questions, maybe we'll just do a modesty episode, which would be really cool. And then the tired of waiting episode, I just took it down because I don't honestly know why. I think I was just feeling a lot of embarrassment and shame for crying on the internet, which is hilarious because there's so many episodes of me crying on the internet. And I felt guilty for being so upset with God so publicly. That episode will probably go back up. It definitely needs to, because there's nothing wrong with it. I think the biggest thing with season 1 was I really wrestled and still am wrestling with, like, how vulnerable is too vulnerable for this podcast. And the only person who can tell me that is God. Like, if I'm honest with you guys, like, hey, I'm doubting God right now. Like, I'm really struggling. Like, I love that honesty and I want to be that honest. But like, where's the boundary? Like, there's one thing about telling that to my best friend and another thing to telling everybody on the internet. So just navigating my boundaries with how vulnerable I am, or like how I am vulnerable on the internet. Because I can be equally vulnerable, but kind of disclose less, but still tell the same story. You know what I mean? Like, you can tell the truth without telling every single nitty-gritty detail. So I'm navigating that. So I just ask you guys to be patient with me as we navigate those boundaries and learning and just navigating the type of podcast this is going to be and the type of host I want to be with God. So yeah, I love you guys. I hope you guys have been great this past couple months. If you've been down bad like me, I'm glad we're now on the come up. But yeah, once again, I love you. Lord, I pray that you would just lead us in this week. I pray that you would bless us tremendously. And I pray that you would just show us the ways that you are good. Whether it's the small things like giving us a voice, giving us legs, giving us stuffed animals, health, someone to text when we're bored, a movie to watch, or something big like you answered a prayer we've been waiting on, something big like you helped us get out of an unhealthy situation. Lord, I just pray that you would remind us of your goodness this week and all the ways that you are good. Because you are significantly more good than any bad that has ever happened. There is always significantly more good than any bad that has ever happened. But sometimes as humans, it's hard for us to focus on that. So I ask you just to redirect our focus. A lot of us can't change our situations, but we can change our focus. We can change our perspective. We can change our attitude. So I just ask you to remind us and show us and pull on our hearts in the areas where we need to change our attitudes and change our heart posture. I thank you for the community you've provided us on the Demon Slayers Club, and I love you. I love you, God. I love me. I love you guys on the podcast, and I'll see you on the next episode, whenever that may be. Bye.